Millionaire man hears homeless boy say. Your baby is still alive, what happens? Next leaves him in shock. The bright White House stood silent at the end of the long driveway. Once it had been full of laughter of life, but today the only sound was the soft creak of the wooden porch steps as Alexander Porter sank down onto them, shoulders hunched, hands trembling. He wore a crisp light pink shirt and black trousers, but his eyes were hollow, sunken with grief. He hadn't slept in days. Before him on the porch rested a small gleaming wooden coffin. Open inside, swaddled in a pale blanket, lay the tiny body of his newborn son, the child that should have saved him, the child that had cost him everything. Alexander was only 33, but already a self-made millionaire. In just a few short years he had built one of the largest real estate firms in the city. But none of that mattered to him anymore. Not now. 3 days ago his beautiful wife Clara had gone into labor. It was supposed to be the happiest day of their lives. They had waited years for this child. After 2 miscarriages and endless tears, this was finally going to be their miracle. But something went wrong. Severe complications during the delivery. A desperate scramble in the operating room. Alexander had been pacing the hospital hallway when the doctor came out. The look on his face was enough. I'm so sorry, Mr. Porter, the doctor said quietly. Your wife didn't make it. The words shattered him. His knees buckled. The hallway spun. And the baby, he had choked out. The doctor hesitated, then shook his head. He was born, but only for a few moments. We did everything we could. In an instant Alexander's life had been ripped apart. Wife, child gone. He couldn't think, couldn't breathe. The funeral arrangements were made in a daze. He couldn't bear the thought of a cold funeral home or strangers handling his son's body. I want him here, he told the staff at home one last time. Now on the porch where Clara had once rocked in the evenings, their child lay in a tiny coffin. Alexander sat motionless, staring at the small still form. His world had crumbled. What was the point of the business deals, the properties, the millions? Without Clara, without the child they had dreamed of, it was all meaningless. He ran a hand over his face. His eyes burned from the tears. He couldn't stop seeing Clara's face, her final smile when she had been wheeled away. We're going to meet our son soon, she had whispered, and now she was gone. So was the baby, or so he thought. Alexander hadn't noticed the small figure approaching the porch, a young black boy, maybe 7 or 8, barefoot, thin, wearing a filthy oversized blue t-shirt and ragged brown shorts. His skin was strewn with dirt. His arms and legs were scratched. A homeless child. The boy had wandered past the big house, drawn by the sight of the open coffin on the porch. At first he stood far off, watching quietly. Then he crept closer, eyes wide. He could see the baby inside, so small and still. But something made him stop. The baby's chest moved just barely. The boy blinked, rubbed his eyes, and stared harder. A faint breath aflutter beneath the blanket. He looked up at the man on the steps. Mister, the boy called softly. Alexander didn't respond. He sat frozen, lost in grief. The boy edged closer, pointing now at the baby. Mister, your baby, he's alive. Alexander's head snapped up. His hollow eyes narrowed. What? The boy pointed again, more urgently. I saw him move. He's breathing. Alexander's heart slammed in his chest. No, surely not, the doctors had said, but something in the boy's voice and those clear, desperate eyes made him turn. He shot to his feet and stumbled toward the coffin. Leaning over, breath held, he stared at his son's tiny form, and then He saw it the faintest rise and fall of the chest barely there but there. Alexander's throat closed, his hand shook violently as he reached down, brushing his fingertips across the baby's cheek. Warm software, not cold, not gone, he gasped, staggered back. Oh my God, his mind reeled. The doctors had said dead. They had signed the papers, but the boy, this child, this homeless boy, had seen the truth. Alexander spun toward him. Stay here, he choked. Don't move! Fumbling with his phone, adrenaline crashing through his veins, he dialed the emergency line. My baby is alive, he shouted. Send help now, I need an ambulance, he's alive! His legs nearly gave out as he clutched the edge of the porch, breath ragged. The boy stood silently watching him. Moments later, Alexander turned back, eyes wet. You saved my son, he whispered. And deep inside something shifted. A spark of hope, of life breaking through the darkness. Alexander stood frozen, heart hammering. His mind spun wildly as sirens began to wail in the distance. The boy, this little stranger who had just saved his son, stood quietly near the porch, watching with wide eyes. Moments later, paramedics rushed up the steps. Alexander met them at the door, voice trembling. He's alive, please save him. They quickly assessed the newborn. Oxygen was administered. The baby's weak pulse detected. There was no time to lose. We need to get him to the hospital now, one paramedic said sharply. Alexander climbed into the ambulance, his hand never leaving the baby's tiny one. His world, moments ago shrouded in despair, was now flooded with a terrifying hope. As they sped through the city, Alexander looked down at his son. Hang on, little one, please hang on. At the hospital, a team of specialists waited. The emergency room sprang to life. Machines beeped, doctors and nurses moved. With practiced urgency, Alexander stood nearby, fists clenched, barely breathing. Time crawled, minutes felt like hours. Finally, Dr. Adams, the neonatologist, approached him. Mr. Porter, your son was in an extremely weak state, but he's stabilized. He's going to make it. Alexander's legs gave out. He collapsed into a chair, head in his hands, sobbing. My boy. When he finally looked up, a thought struck him hard. The boy, the one who had saved his son. Alexander rushed back to his house. The paramedics were gone. The crowd had not gathered, but the homeless boy was still there, sitting quietly on the porch steps. Alexander knelt before him. What's your name? He asked softly. Eli, the boy whispered. Eli, how did you know? Alexander asked, voice thick with emotion. I saw him move. Eli said simply, I've seen babies before. I knew he wasn't gone. Tears filled Alexander's eyes again. He looked at the boy, thin, barefoot, clothes torn, dirt smudged across his face, and something inside him broke. Where's your family, Eli? The boy looked down. Don't have one. I sleep out here. Sometimes people don't notice me. Alexander's throat tightened. This boy, ignored by the world, forgotten, and yet he had saved his son's life. You saved him, Alexander said quietly. I can never repay you, but I can make sure you're never alone again. He stood and offered his hand. Come with me. Eli stared for a moment, unsure, then slowly he reached out and took the man's hand. That night, after speaking to the authorities and child services, Alexander brought Eli home a warm meal, a hot bath, clean clothes. Things Eli hadn't had in longer than he could remember. The next morning, Alexander returned to the hospital. His son, whom he named Benjamin, was recovering well. He held the tiny boy close to his heart, tears falling freely. You're here because of him, Alexander Whispered later that day he sat with Eli in the hospital room. I want you to stay with us, Eli, if you'll let me. The boy looked up, eyes shining with hope. You mean live here? Yes, Alexander said firmly. You saved my son, you saved me, you deserve a family. Over the weeks that followed, Alexander completed the legal process. He formally adopted Eli. The man who had lost everything now had not only his son but a second child, one who had reminded him of hope. Together they healed, together they rebuilt, and in time, whenever asked about that day, Alexander would simply smile and say, "It was a little boy, a homeless boy, who gave me back my life." If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more emotional, dramatic, and unexpected tales. And let us know in the comments where in the world are you watching from. We love hearing from all of you. Until next time, stay kind, stay curious, and keep watching.